Sagittarius, they think there will be no karma, but they won't like their punishment. Have you ever felt like there are people in this life who do wrong, lie, betray, even hurt you, and yet they keep living peacefully, keep smiling, keep going on as if nothing ever happened? And you wonder, where is justice? Where does righteousness lie? But dear Sagittarius, the universe has its own rhythm. And you, with your powerful intuition and a soul connected to the deepest layers of truth, you know this. You know that no one walks through their own darkness without facing the consequences. Sooner or later. They believe there will be no karma. But they won't like the punishment their own soul has created. Today, I will take you into a special cycle that is being activated, a cycle in which the stars, the planets, and the ancient laws of the universe are beginning to turn the wheel of balance once again. This is not a story about revenge. This is a story about sacred justice, a place where light finds those who live with truth, and darkness returns to those who once spread pain. If you are hearing this, it is not by chance. It is a sign that you have been chosen to see the truth, and to stand on the side of truth. Do not leave this video, because by the end of today's journey, you will not only understand what is coming, but also know how to walk forward like someone protected by the very light inside your heart. If something in what I'm saying touches you on a deep level, leave a comment. I am ready to embrace my destiny. That is not just an affirmation, it is a way to connect with the flow of energy that is now beginning to move around you. And if you believe that someone else needs to hear this too, please share this video as an act of spreading the light. Because sometimes, just one moment of realization is enough to change an entire life. There is something people rarely realize when they talk about Sagittarius. Behind the image of freedom and optimism is a heart that has been deeply tested. They think Sagittarius is just someone who loves adventure, who wants freedom, who avoids commitment. But few know that behind it all is a soul that has learned how to live truthfully, even when that truth makes others uncomfortable. And it is exactly because of that you have been betrayed. I don't know what you've been through. But if you are a Sagittarius, or carry the essence of one, I believe you faced a moment like this. When you lived honestly, spoke truthfully, loved wholeheartedly, and ended up truly hurt. Others may hide. But you cannot. You don't know how to deceive. And when you live in truth, you unknowingly illuminate places others wish to keep hidden. That is why you got hurt. And also why you were chosen. There are people who hurt you. Not just in a single moment, but in ways that made you lose trust. They thought there would be no consequences. They thought you'd forget. They thought life would go on, and you would remain small and silent. But what they didn't know is, you are not weak. You are Sagittarius. And you don't need revenge, because the universe will handle that for you. Have you ever heard this? That when someone hurts you, and you don't respond with anger, justice begins to work. Because your act of letting go is an invitation for sacred justice to step in. You don't need to say anything. Just keep living kindly and truthfully, and you will see, one by one, situation by situation, everything will return to its roots. Those who once inflicted pain will face the very wounds they once caused. This is not theory. This is something I have witnessed, lived through, and come to understand. In my life, I have seen good people treated poorly. I've seen them stay silent, not retaliate, choosing instead to hold on to their integrity and to themselves. And then, after many years, I saw life speak on their behalf. Those who once laughed at others' pain, slowly had nothing left to hold on to. The very things they used to hurt others, reputation, wealth, status, became the reasons for their downfall. Sagittarius, you hold a gift not everyone has. The ability to rise after falling, not with bitterness, but with a wiser heart. You learn fast from pain. And you never let that pain turn you into someone you're not. That is a power. And that is also why karma, when it comes to you, is not here to punish you. It's here to affirm that you were right to protect the light within you, even when the whole world told you to put it out. Do you remember the last time you were misunderstood? When all you wanted was to live honestly, and they saw it as rebellion? When all you tried to do was speak what's right, but they called you disrespectful, selfish? You don't need to prove anything to anyone, because the truth speaks for itself. And light, once it shines, no one can extinguish it. I invite you, if you're hearing this, to pause for a few seconds and ask yourself, what is the deepest truth within me that I once denied just because others didn't like it? Be honest with yourself. Because Sagittarius cannot live halfway. Your soul longs for freedom, but not the shallow kind. It longs for the freedom of a soul unchained by pretense, by fear, or by compromise with what is wrong. And if you're at a stage where you're exhausted from trying to be good, yet still misunderstood, still betrayed, then let me remind you of this. You are not alone. There is a current of energy moving through the universe, and it is coming toward you. Those who once deceived you are now facing the truth of their own lives. Those who once diminished you are now being undone by their own lack of integrity. And you only need to keep holding on to the light within you, and that is enough. If you've ever thought no one saw what you endured, then you were wrong. The universe sees. And light never forgets the way back. Speak a sentence from your heart. I chose the truth, and I do not regret it. That is not a complaint. It is a declaration. And who knows, maybe that one act will open a door you never expected. Some may say you are too emotional, too dreamy, too honest. But let me tell you this, the world is lacking people like you, people who dare to live with truth, to love with truth, to hold on to faith even when everything else falls apart. And if you're still living that way, then you are living more beautifully than most. Because justice does not always come immediately. But when it arrives, it comes deeply, clearly, and no one can escape it. And dear Sagittarius, that moment is drawing near. We will talk more in the next part, when astrological movements reveal the clear signs of karma, events that no one can avoid. Are you ready to keep listening? You know, there's a strange truth in this universe. People can hide many things, but no one can escape the reflection of themselves. Every action, even the quietest, leaves a mark in the energy field of all things. People may think talking behind your back is nothing, that stealing your opportunity is just life experience, that betrayal is just a phase. But the universe does not see it that way. The universe records every vibration. And at a certain point, everything returns to where it began. For Sagittarius, karma does not arrive silently. It comes in the wind, in the light, in the upheavals that others can't name, but you recognize. Because you feel energy. You hear the whispers of truth, even when no one speaks them aloud. And that time is coming very soon. This is a period astrologers call a tense harmony between Jupiter, your ruling planet, and Saturn, the symbol of karma and limits. When these two planets form an opposition, every crack in relationships, every unresolved debt, every buried pattern will begin to rise. Not to hurt you more, but to cleanse. To close one chapter and open a new doorway. Personally, I believe there is no justice more powerful than the one that arrives at the right time. When everything has ripened, when those who lied begin to lose themselves in their own falsehoods. When those who rose by stepping on others begin to lose their footing. You don't need to be there to witness it. But if you quietly observe, you'll see, everything that once caused you pain is now returning to its origin. You may see the person who once hurt you fall into financial crisis. They may lose the trust they once had. They may get entangled in scandal. But more than all of that, anxiety will begin to take over them, because it was the very thing they once planted in others. You don't need to take pleasure in that. But you can exhale a deep, relieving breath, because you know, the light is still doing its work. Justice never falls asleep. And you were right, not to let the darkness lead you too far astray. I remember once, a friend said to me, "I try to live kindly, but I keep facing hardship. While that other person, who was clearly cruel, always seems to thrive." I didn't answer right away. But a few years later, that friend came back and said, "Now I understand. The universe didn't forget me. It was giving them a chance to make things right. And when they didn't, then that chance became their lesson. The lesson I've learned is this. Sometimes, karma arrives late, so that people have a chance to change. But if they don't, then the reckoning will come, without anyone having to push it. And you, the one who was hurt, don't have to do a thing, except protect your peace. You cannot change someone else's behavior. But you can choose not to let that behavior reshape your soul. If you're hearing this now, ask yourself, am I carrying a form of anger that I've held onto for too long? If the answer is yes, try writing down one sentence. I let go so that I may heal. Don't write it for others to see. Write it for yourself. Because that is how you open the door for the light to return. You'll notice something strange happens. When you stop holding on to the energy of resentment, you become lighter. And when you're lighter, the light will reach you faster. New opportunities. New people. New relationships where you don't have to sacrifice your dignity to receive love. You deserve that. The universe never runs short of blessings for those who live with truth. But it must see that you are ready to receive. Ready to believe. Ready to move forward, without looking back in anger. If you feel what I'm saying, leave a comment from your heart. I choose light over hatred. It's not an empty phrase. It's a declaration of your soul, your way out of the loop of suffering, and into the new flow that's waiting for you. You know, Sagittarius is one of the zodiac signs that can regenerate energy faster than most, but also one of the most deeply wounded. Because they live through ideals. They believe in truth. They believe in justice. And they are deeply hurt when the world doesn't seem to follow the same path. But it is also because of that, they are the first to sense when the wheel of justice begins to turn. And I believe it is turning now, Sagittarius. You may not see it with your eyes. But notice the energy around you. Strange dreams. A sense of unease in people who once seemed overly confident. Coincidences that keep repeating. None of it is random. It is the universe rearranging order. We are not the ones who decide who deserves what. But we have the right to choose a path that doesn't harm others. Even when we have been harmed ourselves. And that is the highest form of justice. Justice does not only punish what is wrong, it uplifts what is right. And when you choose what is right, the universe will stand with you. Truth is already speaking. All you need to do is listen. And in the next part, I will show you how to use the very light inside you not just to step out of the dark, but to become a guide for others. Because Sagittarius, you were never meant to walk this path alone. You were born to illuminate a part of the world that others have never seen. I used to think that to be strong, one had to be tough. To be resilient. To never let others see you weak. But then life, like a stern but loving teacher, taught me something else. Strength is not in never falling. It's in falling and choosing to rise, even when your heart is still bleeding. Like that time I fell into the pit of betrayal, and still had to smile at life the next day. Not because I was strong, but because I didn't want the darkness to live in me for one more day. For Sagittarius, what makes you special was never perfection. It's your ability to rise from the ashes and keep walking. With eyes that still dare to believe in something good. People think you are indifferent. But the truth is, you've hurt so deeply. You had to learn to be gentle with yourself. They think you give up easily. But they don't know, you simply refuse to stay in a place that no longer feels true. Have you had days like that? Days when everything feels broken, not because you are weak, but because you're the only one who isn't pretending. Days when you just want to disappear, not because you don't love life, but because you loved it too much, and it wore you down. If you've ever been there, I want you to know. You are not alone. It is in those moments that feel like the very end, that you are being touched by a greater truth. That pain doesn't come to break you. It comes to cut away what no longer belongs to you. Toxic relationships. Outdated beliefs. Roles you used to play just to be accepted. All of it is falling away, not because you've failed, but because you're stepping into a new phase. A phase where you no longer have to live falsely in order to be loved. For Sagittarius, wounds don't make you weaker. They make you clearer. Each time you break open, you see something you once couldn't face. And because you dare to face it, you evolve faster than most. You are not afraid of truth. You are afraid of falseness. And that is what makes you both deeply vulnerable and truly unbreakable. I've met people who had everything, status, reputation, money, but when they were betrayed, they collapsed entirely. Because they had never placed their heart in anything real. But you, Sagittarius, you once placed your whole soul into a promise, a glance, a love. And when it broke, you didn't just lose a relationship, you lost a piece of yourself. But still, you chose to keep walking. Not because you didn't feel, but because you knew, staying in pain for too long would cost you your identity. The greatest lesson I ever learned from someone with a Sagittarius soul was this. Don't let pain make you bitter. Let it become the fuel for a deeper journey. And I know, you can do that. But you don't have to do it alone. If you're listening to this, and something inside you is trembling, not out of fear, but because you recognize yourself in these words, then know this is a reminder. A reminder that you've come a long way. That you've endured far more than others know. And that you are worthy of a new chapter, one that's softer, more honest, and true to who you are. Don't let the past dictate what kind of light you're allowed to carry into the future. You can rewrite. Begin again. Believe again. Love again. But this time, choose something worthy of the light you've protected all those unseen years. If you're ready, whisper this to yourself, or write it down as a reminder. I wasn't born to suffer endlessly. I was born to be reborn. That is a declaration, not to the world, but to your soul. It's your way of opening the door to a chapter that life has been preparing you for all along. And if those words touched something in you, leave a comment, not for me, but as a promise to the universe. I have learned enough from pain. I choose to be reborn. You'll never know what miracle could happen when you speak those words honestly from your heart. But I believe, and you should too, that when you dare to choose the light will never leave you again. So in the next part, I want to go further with you, not just into healing, but into rebirth. I'll share how the universe is quietly preparing its greatest rewards for those who stay loyal to the light, even when no one sees, even when others laugh. And how you can receive those blessings, not with defensiveness, but with deep gratitude. I believe there are moments in life when no one needs to say a word, and yet you just know something big is on its way. Not through sight or sound, but through intuition. A vague but very real sense that a door is about to open. For Sagittarius, you are sensitive to such movements. Not because you're superstitious, but because you feel energy. You don't need proof. Just enough silence, and you'll know something is shifting. I once lived through such a moment. A very ordinary morning, it wasn't raining. It wasn't sunny, but in my heart, there was a strange feeling. As if a melody had just touched my soul, even though no one had played a single note. And then, a few weeks later, an event happened that changed the entire direction of my life. That's when I understood. The universe always gives warning. It's just that not everyone is quiet enough to hear it. If lately you've been having strange dreams, write them down. If someone suddenly reappears in your life, pay attention to what they bring with them. If you keep receiving the same message from different sources, don't be too quick to call it a coincidence. It could be a whisper from the universe, reminding you that you're getting very close to a major turning point. When an old chapter is about to close, life sends you signs, not to scare you, but to help you prepare. Maybe you find yourself no longer excited about relationships you used to cherish. Maybe you suddenly feel tired of a job you once thought was secure. That's not a sign of confusion, it's a sign of awakening. You no longer fit into the old. And the new is getting ready to arrive. For Sagittarius, the time ahead is when you need to return inward, not to escape the world, but to hear clearly the call from within. Is there something you once dreamed of, but let go because of duty, fear, or the opinions of others? Is there something you once wanted to do, but folded away in the drawer of, maybe someday? There is no more, someday. Now is the time. I once witnessed someone, who had lost everything, return to the passion they had forgotten nearly 20 years ago. And within a year, their life transformed completely. Not because of luck, but because they were ready to answer the call of their soul, at the very moment the universe opened the door. The lesson I learned from that story is this. Every dream that once made your heart tremble appeared for a reason. And if it hasn't left, maybe it's waiting for you to return. And maybe, that moment is now. If you're still listening, take a moment to be still. Place your hand on your heart, and ask, am I really living according to what I believe in? If the answer is, not yet, then please, don't blame yourself. We all get swept away sometimes. But once you realize it, you can come back. Sometimes, one step is all it takes to change your direction. If this resonates with you, leave yourself an affirmation. It doesn't need to be poetic. Just something like, I'm ready to step into something new. Not because the old was bad, but because your soul is asking for growth. And growth, sometimes, begins with gently letting go of what you once thought was forever. In the next part, I'll share with you why some of life's greatest rewards only appear after you choose to live truly. Not before. Not in parallel. But only after you choose to be brave. There is a truth that few like to admit, but it's always there. People easily forget what they've done to others, but they can never escape the consequences. I've seen it far too many times, those who laughed while causing someone else pain. One day find themselves stuck, confused, not knowing why. They thought they were just joking. They believed someone else's hurt was just weakness. But then, as everything around them begins to unravel, their career stumbles, their relationships strain, their heart feels uneasy without reason, they begin to feel lost. What they don't realize is, they are facing themselves, reflected through what they once did to others. It's not punishment. It's a lesson. The universe is not a punisher. It's a mirror. And in that mirror, everyone must see themselves, honestly and fully. For Sagittarius, you may have forgiven many times. You may have chosen not to retaliate. You may have walked away in silence. But don't ever think that makes you weak. On the contrary, it was you, through letting go, through refusing to become like them, who activated a different cycle, the cycle of reflection. You don't need to witness them paying the price. But you will feel it, when karma begins its work. Not because you wish harm on anyone, but because you are sensitive enough to recognize that energy is returning to the point where it began. I'll never forget a time when someone who had betrayed me at work, someone I had trusted like family, suddenly reached out years later. Not to apologize, but to talk about what was happening in their life, feeling lost, disillusioned, betrayed by others. When I heard it, I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt peace. Because I knew I didn't have to do anything. Everything was simply returning to where it belonged. The lesson I took from those years was this: the most powerful revenge is not success. It's not proving yourself. It's peace. It's being able to look at someone who hurt you and feel no pain, no hate, no need for them to understand. And when you reach that state, you will know you've already won. You've won in the most human, the most dignified way. If you've ever been betrayed, deceived, abandoned, you understand what it feels like to carry a wound no one sees. But you also know you don't have to carry it forever. You can let it go. Not to forget, but to be free. To free yourself. If you've ever asked, why hasn't the one who wronged me faced consequences? I invite you to consider this. Maybe they already have, but in ways you cannot see. Maybe the anxiety they feel each night is the answer. Maybe their inability to trust anyone anymore is the cost. And maybe they are being suffocated by the very fear they once planted in others. You don't need to control that process. You just need to keep living in alignment with your values. Because each day you choose truth. Each day you choose to stay kind. You pull your life energy out of the darkness. And light always finds those who walk toward it, again and again. If you're still here, write down one sentence to set your course. I choose to let go, so I can be free. That is not an excuse. It is an inner declaration that you have learned enough from pain. And you are ready to live differently. And if you feel this in your heart, share this video with someone you know who also carries a hidden wound. Because sometimes, just one message is enough to help someone breathe easier again. Enough to make someone believe in the light one more time. In the next part, I want to talk to you about what comes after this stage. When all the doors that were once closed suddenly open. Not because you begged, but because you became someone worthy of walking through them. Because the world doesn't reward perfection, it rewards those who stayed true to what is right, even when no one else stood beside them. There's something we were never taught as children. How to keep our hearts clean after we've been hurt. We learned how to protect ourselves. We learned how to react. But no one taught us how not to grow bitter. No one taught us that, in the end, what matters most is not whether others paid for what they did, but whether we stayed whole. I used to think I had to demand justice at all costs. I used to carry unnamed anger, unanswered questions. But one day, I realized that anger didn't make me stronger. It just pulled me further away from the person I wanted to be. For Sagittarius, the most sacred thing you have is your honest heart. A heart that, even after all it's been through, still wants to believe. Still wants to live beautifully. And you must protect that. Not just for you, but because this world needs people like you. People who dare to remain kind, even when the world is unkind. Believe me, peace doesn't come from others suffering like you did. Peace comes when you stop letting past pain define who you become. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm not asking you to deny what happened. I'm inviting you to stop letting darkness live inside you forever. If there is a feeling inside you that still weighs you down, try whispering. I choose peace over bitterness. That is the declaration of a strong soul, not one that needs to win over others, but one that knows how to win over the dark within. You deserve a lighter life. And you will have it. Not because others change, but because you chose the light again and again. In the final part, I want to give you a gift. A reminder of what's waiting ahead. The reward for souls who never betrayed themselves. Stay with me. Because the deepest truths always come at the end. There's something that kind-hearted people often don't say out loud. They're tired. Not because they're weak, but because they've had to be strong in silence, steady in loneliness, and pure in a world that often isn't fair. If you're a Sagittarius, or carry the heart of one, you've probably lived through seasons like that. Maybe you've stood at a crossroads, between anger and faith. And you chose faith. Not because you're naive, but because you refuse to become what you once feared. I want you to know. The universe never forgets people like you. Not a single tear is wasted. Not a single act of forgiveness goes unnoticed. And no soul that keeps its light in the dark goes unrewarded. Maybe you don't see it yet. But one day, someone will show up and truly see you. An opportunity will arrive at just the right moment. As if life itself is apologizing for all the delays. A new landscape, where you don't have to hide your beliefs. Where you don't have to compromise what you know is right. Everything you fought to protect will return. In a more beautiful, truer, and more deserving form. I won't promise every wound will be healed overnight. But I promise, if you keep living with truth, you will be healed in ways you never expected. Because what comes from truth never truly disappears. It only takes time to blossom in its right season. If there's one thing left to believe in, then believe this. You were not born just to endure suffering. You were born to reach a peace so deep. It only comes when you've walked far enough to know what really matters. Write one final sentence, as a way to open the next chapter. I am ready to receive the reward of the light. Because I know I've come far enough, held on long enough, and loved true enough. To deserve something just as honest in return. And if your heart feels the truth in this, leave a comment. Let me know you're still here. Still believing. Still walking forward. And if you believe someone else needs to hear this, please share this video. As if you were lighting a small candle in the dark. Enough for someone, even just one person, to no longer feel alone. Thank you for walking with me through this journey. Dear Sagittarius, you are not alone. And you have never been forgotten.